Lacey and Ian earned their stripes on this. They were gamers. She's staying committed, and the fire behind her is growing and growing. He was amazing. He was a little natural. This is a movie that guys will love too. It's one of the funnest movies I've ever done. There's some firsts for Hallmark in this, and definitely something you won't see coming. The outcome is not guaranteed.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heart in Motion podcast. I'm so excited to welcome back to the podcast Dustin Rikert. Hi, Dustin. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Happy New Year.
Hey, you too. We're off to a great start. We're really excited that your movie Lost in Paradise is kicking off the new year with Lacey Chabert and Ian Harding. So I'm excited to be talking with you about that today. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, very excited. Very excited to talk about it.
Before we get into it, I got to visit with you last year, which seems like, just yesterday. A Newport Christmas, you were involved in that project, and then
Yep.
Holiday Touchdown, A Bill's Love Story. Both of those projects had great reviews, were great projects. We got to talk beforehand. Just really quick, can you share? I know because some things you couldn't share when we talked beforehand, but speaking to those two projects, what's something that you really enjoyed being involved in those two projects?
Oh my goodness. Too many things to list, but I'll do my best. First of all, both those projects were completely different
Yeah.
and um, couldn't have been different from each other, but also I felt like a real treat for the fans in a lot of ways too. A Newport Christmas was a project that we developed internally over the last couple of years, and we're really excited to finally get to make. And One of the things I think that was most fun about that was it was a little different in that the characters fell in love sooner, and you had a bit of a love triangle going on, which was fun. And it was fun to create something where you could create as much doubt as much as possible with the outcome.
Mhm.
The locations are obviously spectacular. So that was one of the big things is really being true to the character arcs and being able to build out their love story a little sooner and seeing the passion. Um, Jenna Claire and Wes Brown were fantastic in the role. The supporting cast was fantastic. So that was a really I cried a lot when we were editing that film. I'm a sap anyway, but I guess how can you not be if you do these films? But
Works really good for being a Hallmark person. So good
Yeah,
job.
yeah, thank you. Well, you have to love what you do.
Yeah.
So that and to be quite honest, the critical response to the film after it was released was one of the biggest shockers to me. I mean, obviously, I felt like the movie was a good movie. We're very proud of the movie, but it was really amazing, the fan and critical response. I mean, Variety wrote a quick piece about it, Cinema Blend, and so that was really fun I mean, I knew Holiday Touchdown because it was in with Skydance and NFL and one of Hallmark's more elevated films of the year. But I feel like we had this little bit of a sleeper hit on our hands with Newport Christmas, and that was one of the biggest thrills for me of the year so far. So, and then you get Holiday Touchdown, and that was one of the best experiences of my life, to be honest. Filming in Buffalo with the fans and the people, and the way the film commission rolls out the red carpet there, and just how much the community rallied behind the film. And it was a fantastic script. I really love how the cameos and the team weren't just shoehorned in there, like they had a purpose in helping with the story, and it was really fun to get to do that movie. The movie has a lot of heart and soul. One of the things I love about the Holiday Touchdown movies is each film is their own movie. You know, they might have you deal with the team and you deal with the moniker, but Hallmark goes out of its way to make sure each movie is a love letter to whatever team and fan base they're doing them with, and to give each story its own fresh story and own fresh adventure. So that's one of the things that I really really loved about it. So, and what an ensemble cast! Oh my
Oh,
goodness!
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you had mentioned to me, I know when we talked about A Newport Christmas, that you love the unexpected and throwing something in like that. And I would agree watching that one. I remember being close to the end of the movie and I'm like, how is this going to work out? So you guys pulled that off. Loved the ending, love how it played out. And I
Thank
know
you.
even Lacey, speaking of Lost in Paradise,
Yes.
she has used one of the three words that she has used to describe this movie is unexpected. So,
Yes.
once again, your reputation precedes you throwing out the word unexpected. So, that's
Yep.
exciting to know that there's going to be something that kind of throws us off going into Lost in Paradise. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
100%. I cannot wait for audiences to see this movie. It's Lacey at her best and Ian at his best, and they are fantastic together in this. And the supporting cast is amazing. So I can't wait to have everybody see this. It's just the movie was so much fun to make. It was shot entirely on location in Fiji, other than one soundstage day in LA because of the jet sequence and the airplane sequence. But there's some first for Hallmark in this, so there's some pretty good peril that they're in, and there's some tension between the two, which is really fun, and their comedic chops definitely show through in this movie. But also, there's a great love story at the end of the day too. So, and definitely something you won't see coming.
We
Several
love
things
that.
you won't see coming, and the introduction of a brand new superstar in the making of T-Rex, the little dog who plays Lacey's little dog
Nice.
Gianni in the movie. He was um, he was a dog who was, there's rules when you film in different countries. You can't just bring in show animals or trained animals. And Fiji's a very small country and basically a giant island similar to the Hawaiian Islands. And so we were at a bit of a quandary because we couldn't just bring in an animal. If you brought them in, they had to stay there. They go through quarantine and the time frame we have to do all that. It's impossible. So we found this local little this fantastic gentleman who owned T-Rex and a couple of his siblings, and we instantly fell in love with him. He was not a movie trained dog, but he fit and checked all the boxes of what we needed, and he was amazing. He was a little natural. They say some people are born for cinema. Little T-Rex was born for the cinema, and with the help of some VFX magic, we were able to really pull off some fun things with him. So
Does he have like a significance to the story, or is he
yes,
just kind of okay? Well,
no,
that's
he's a little character in his own right in the story, a little through line, and he was awesome. He was awesome. You're gonna. I mean, it's hard not to fall in love with a little guy.
okay.
He's even on the poster. If you.
That's awesome.
So,
So Lacey plays Sophia, Ian Harding plays Max. And what we know so far about the movie is that Lacey is a high-end fashion founder. She
yep.
ends up stranded on this deserted island with Ian's character,
Yep.
Max, who is a chef. Can you talk a little bit? Because I think your team developed this project. Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, we developed this project with Lacey. Lacey brings in a certain number of projects every year, and we co-developed it with her and hatched the story with her, and brought it to the network. And so this project was very much a labor of love. We had we earmarked it for a Fijian type of location right from the beginning, which was no easy task because you have to bring a lot of the stuff in. Um, so a lot of love went into birthing this. We got amazing group of writers and writing team, husband and wife writing team, and they are fantastic. Their comedic chops are great. They've been nominated for several things. We've done another project or two with them in the past, so they were fantastic. And it was a really fun development process, to be honest. But once you decide that it's greenlit and the reality of doing a movie in Fiji, that's where the rubber hits the road, as they say. um, you got to bring everything in. Half of our crew, it was kind of a third, a third, a third. We brought in people that we work with all the time. Our production designer, Daniel King, who's fantastic. Keith, we call him the iconic Keith's costumes. Keith came on board. Our director of photography, Brandon Maxim. So we brought our core team, including some of our key production peeps, and then the rest of the crew is made up of New Zealand and Australian crew with some local Fijian people who fit the bill thrown in. They do a lot of reality in Fiji, but they don't do as much film in Fiji, and so there's a bit of a different. They're cousins, but it is a different aesthetic. So we were able to find some good locals, and then we supplemented everything from with our team and Australia and New Zealand, as well as the cast too. The cast was a very you know world traveled cast. So, for lack of a better word. So,
So you mentioned that early on you guys had kind of earmarked Fiji. It's not your first location movie,
no.
but what were some of the? I mean, you kind of hinted at this. What presented once you got there some of the challenges to being on location in Fiji?
Well, so you get there, and it's a big island with the resorts. When you're not on the resorts, everything is owned by tribes, by the tribes that make up the region. And less than 100 years ago, some of these tribes were still practicing cannibalism, which is funny enough. So it's like crazy. They are amazing people, though. They've come a long way. They're an amazing group of people. But everything, if you want to film in their mountains, if you want to film in their jungles, there's a certain process you have to go through with their elders and the heads of their tribes, and you have to have kava ceremonies. And so there were some really interesting experiences that we had to undertake just to get permission to use some of these locations. They're very proud people, and they were a wonderful people. I have to say, they're so proud of their lineage and where they come from, and but it's a completely different way of living than we're used to. When you're on the resorts, it's what you might imagine. Where we stayed, um, it was the resort focused a lot on diving and scuba diving, and that ocean around us is heavily populated by bull sharks, including the rivers that come up by the resorts. And so you have to be very cognizant because bull sharks are one of the deadliest, probably considered one of the deadliest five apex sharks out there. And they have a heavy tourism business on actually going and filming people that go on dives to experience the bull sharks, and they chum the water. The bull sharks come in. So when they see a boat, they think it's feeding time. So we're out, doing filming, and we're out going to islands, and you see the chum boats out and with the divers, but the drivers were always messing with us because they were like, we don't want to go overboard here because if we go in the water, the sharks are going to come. When they find no chum, guess who's the chum? It's like, okay. And we had a lot of scenarios like that, including in the rivers. Like we had stunt people that were there specifically to be spotters and just to make sure things were safe. And we had some interesting shark experiences. Some of the shark footage in the movie, all the shark footage in the movie was actually really filmed, actually by our executive producer and his wife, who are avid divers, and went, I think, almost every weekend they were doing some kind of deep sea dive around the fish or wrecks or things like that. So it was a lot of fun, but we were out there in the elements. So when you go, it's not like you can bring in movie trailers. Lacey and Ian, we were very upfront. I'm glad Lacey was a part of the producing team for this because she knew going in, I'm not going to have my usual star trailer. I'm not going to have. I mean, she's the easiest person to have around anyway, but she knew what it was going in. And so when we filmed for a whole week on this deserted beach that was a couple miles, and that's all there was. She had a little chair over in the corner with a little sunshade, and like, there's your trailer. It was great though because she and Ian were both really present for everything that was going on as we would block the scene, as we would rehearse the scene and set up the shots. It was actually an incredibly collaborative process, and so there's a lot of fun that came out of that. And I think they really appreciated it too. And we zipped through our days. Like over there, you have a shorter amount of filming time you're allowed. Especially like in different parts of Europe, we have here in the U.S. we'll have like a 12-hour filming day at least. Over there, it's more like a 10 by the time you factor in lunch. So you really had to zip through your days, but not having to march people to and from trailers or just different crew from their workspaces. Everything was right there. But we battled the elements. You're battling wind and rain, and we got pretty lucky though. We had to do a couple pivots and swap the schedule a bit. We'd go in with a morning with an A schedule and a B schedule, and then we'd have to decide which one we were going to do sometimes. So
Lacey put out a reel this morning about some behind the scenes.
yeah,
And she's got a reel of her and Ian on a rope, like climbing up to actually get to a
yes,
scene.
yes, that was day. Well, we call it day one. It was actually day point 5. There was this one region that the tribe gave us permission to shoot, and this was the day, and it was before we started cinematography on day one. So we went on a weekend and huffed it all the way up to the top of this region, and it was so beautiful, so gorgeous. But there was no rush. Lacey and Ian earned their stripes on this. They were gamers. I mean, they endured some cuts and scrapes, and Everything you see in this is Lacey. So
So you had mentioned earlier, we talked about the word unexpected. Lacey had described the movie with these three words: adventure, romantic, and unexpected.
yes,
And you've talked about how you like bringing in that element. You want, a movie, let's say Hallmark, you want it to stay true to brand, but you also want to
yes,
kind of throw that in. Was that originally in the script? Like, we're going to throw this unexpected element in
yes.
there? Okay.
This unexpected element. There's several unexpected, but the biggest twist was in there early on in the inception of how we crafted the story. So
Okay.
it'll be fun to talk about, once you see the film. Yeah, but the biggest twist would be obviously near the end, and it's really fun. So um, yeah.
Okay, so this film is described as anything Lacey has ever done. And I mean, she's done over, I believe, 40 Hallmark movies. What are some of those big things for you that you're like, this is something that's unlike anything that I've ever done?
Well, I mean, we deal with a plane crash and that type of peril, which we had a lot of fun with, but also kept it. I mean, the sequence looks really good and it's very believable. And but we tried to, whenever you're dealing with situations like that, we try to lean into the comedic side because it's either one way or the other. You know what I mean? If you're going down, and Ian is comedy gold, and so is Lacey. When you give Lacey permission to unleash her comic chops, that's the funnest thing about Lacey. She can lock into one way, and when you push her and give her that creative license, man, she takes off, and she's genius at it. Both of them, they were just hilarious, and our supporting cast was fantastic. So the four of them had a great chemistry. It was really, really fun. So that's one of the biggest things was dealing with some of the peril that we did. And there's lots of peril in this. There's lots of adventure. I don't want to give away too many things because it's situational, and if I talk about it, it'll kind of kill the surprise and the fun of it. But they dealt. I mean, I don't know what's out there in social media and what pictures they've been allowed, but you're dealing with reptiles and cliffs and just nasty stuff, sharks, and it's really fun, really, really fun. So I would say that Lacey is great about letting us push the boundaries of what she likes to do. And but again, at its core, it's still a great love story. At core, it's still got the comedy that, especially these kind of, I call them winter summer romances, because people are homebound in the winter. It's a great escape, and I don't think they'll be disappointed. It's one of the funnest movies I've ever done. And circling back to what you said about the unexpected, the reason I like to lean into the unexpected as much as possible is, with a Hallmark movie, you kind of know what you're going to get by the end of the movie. One of the reasons I tune into the movies, though, is whenever there is possible doubt. I mean, that's why we hang on a movie. You hang on a movie to see if the people are going to come together at the end. And sometimes, even if you're disappointed with the ending and they don't, you're like, "Oh, I hated that ending because they didn't come together." With a Hallmark movie, you don't generally get that. But part of why you tune into a movie for me is because the outcome is never 100% guaranteed, but that's part of why you're in the journey. You know what I'm saying? So if I actually talk about this, some of the original, the old Hallmark Hall of Fame movies, the outcome was not always guaranteed. There might be some really sad endings and some really beautiful, like terms of endearment type endings, like worth the Hallmark Hall of Fame moniker, but it wasn't always necessarily the perfect ending. And it pulled at your heartstrings and you had to pass the tissues. I love that because, and I wish we could do a little more of that sometimes, just every once in a while, because when the end is not guaranteed, it keeps you vested, right? You want to know. It's one of the things I loved about Newport Christmas, for
Yeah,
instance. And one of the things I hope you'll enjoy with this movie, because the outcome is not guaranteed. So,
love it.
yeah.
So going back to like a Newport Christmas, when we talked about that, you shared that your team, you love that special effects side of it and being able to get in. So with this movie, did you have a lot of on the back side of that special effects and things that you had to do, or did you just really rely on the location and getting those amazing
Well,
shots?
first of all, people out, because they know we own it. We do a lot of higher end, stuff. People ask us about the effects a lot, but I also want to clarify a misconception in that effects is best when it services the story. So I try to never go out of my way just to create effect sequences. We use it to do scene extensions and to erase modern, and today with snow we do it a lot and everything. So any effects that we try to use is simply because we don't have the budget to just make an a special effects extravaganza. On this movie, you'll never know where we used effects because it was all in service of the movie and was all to hide generally cables or wires or remove modern day things. So a lot of times when you see the people doing what they do, that was real. We had real stunt people there, real riggings. We might have had safety things that we had to erase and stuff like that, but it's all real situational traditional stunts in this film. So that was really fun.
Going back story wise, I know you've talked a little bit about Lacey and Ian and
Yep.
that collaborative process. We're always going to show up with a Hallmark movie for that chemistry between those two characters. So, what conversations did you guys have about, I know that these two characters, they come in and they're maybe a little bit at odds with each other,
Yep.
but we want to build that chemistry. So, I mean, natural just happened, didn't really have to talk about it. Or was there an intentional conversation about at this point, we're going to kind of swing away from that, this kind of a thing to that chemistry? Can you talk a little bit about that process?
I mean, it was a well-written script, so it was very inherent in the script to begin with, and that's important when you have a really well-written script, which this was. A lot of the character arcs are just inherent in the dialogue and in the situations. So it was mostly just tracking what scene we're doing, where we're at with your character arcs. And again, all the cast in this movie were pros. They came in with their own, everybody has their own process. Lacey has hers, Ian has his, and they trusted in me. I love when I trust in them, they trust in me. Um, and so it was all very beaded out to begin with. And then we had different conversations on the day with a given scene. And also I try to have a lot of creative freedom with the talent. So we'll have a couple takes that are exactly what's on the page, and then we'll play with some takes and play with the tone that we're going for. Just in case it gets too extreme, too intense, or the argument's too intense or whatever. But a lot of that stuff's honestly what makes it onto the screen. I'd say 80% of the time it's the takes that you play with that end up being the artists have that freedom and their magic comes through. I mean, they're great actors, so
Got it.
that makes sense.
Absolutely. So let's talk just a little bit then about that secondary cast. Looking at IMDb, there's not a big cast. Is that true? Does that help when you're working with a smaller cast?
Well, first of all, James and Sean were fantastic, and they had great chemistry because they had the majority of their scenes together, and they've got their own side adventure that goes on in the movie too, which is hilarious. They're scene stealers. Um, I mean, I belly laugh when I watch a lot of these pieces, but it's not a big cast, and number one, you're dealing with a movie on a deserted island. Number two, um, I mean, there's a lot of action and a lot of setups that we wanted to do. We really wanted the scope of this film to feel big, and it does, like very wide and expansive. So with the more actors you're dealing with coverage, the more it slows down your filming day. Because if you want to shoot something what I like to call proper, you've got to get every camera line, every line of dialogue over the proper, camera line and perspective. So when you're dealing with 2 to 4 people, it's a lot quicker than when you're dealing with 8 to 10 people. You know what I mean? There are
Mhm.
some scenes like that, but it was very helpful to be able to get the type of coverage that we wanted to get to have a smaller cast. It was pretty well thought out, I thought, but I'm biased.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. So Lacey had mentioned these three words: adventure, romantic, and unexpected.
Yeah,
Do you have another word that you would add to that?
yeah, hilarious.
Okay. This is going to be our classic rom-com, right?
I think this is going to be your classic rom com. Yes. I think that this film has the potential to reach the largest possible audience for Hallmark because this is a movie that guys will love too. It's not just your typical girl goes back to the hometown, and this is way different and so much fun. So if you love like a lot of like there was a like that movie 6 Days, 7 Nights with Harrison Ford back in the day, or you
Oh,
like a
yeah.
good jungle, like Romancing the Stone, light, obviously, not
Hmm.
as much, guns and bullets, but like a Romancing the Stone. It's that type of humor and that type of with a little bit of Castaways and Tom Hanks thrown in and stuff like that. So.
So, I know you can't share anything about the movie specifically, but is there a scene that you're really excited for fans to see?
Oh, there's a bunch. There's a bunch of scenes that I'm really excited. I'm really excited for them to see all the plane sequences. I'm really excited for them to see the last 10 minutes of the movie, especially. But everything in between is so much fun too. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, it's hard to pick one. There was so many fun sequences to do. I was like a kid in the candy store because I love adventure and I love action, and whenever I get the chance to do it, I revel in it. So, even with a condensed filming time.
Okay, so you're known for stretching the scope of what's possible within a Hallmark budget. You talked about budget just briefly a minute ago. Did you guys have any specific conversations about scale and ambition on this film?
Yeah, our executive producer and our lead, our Hallmark execs, was something we talked about going in right from the get go, and that's something that when Andrew Lacey and Andrew Gernhardt, who's Synthetic Cinema, helped develop this, and with Lacey, there's the three of us talked about that right from the get go. We want this to be as big and expansive and wide as possible. And when you see that, we don't shoot it narrow. We show the landscapes and show, that's the way we chose to cover it. One of the joys for me, though, is when the network started seeing the dailies. When the network starts seeing the dailies and they're chiming in how much they love the footage and the shots, that was to me, that was the pure joy. Because you can say you're going to shoot it, with a bigger scope in mind, but then saying and doing sometimes, things happen. But I really was excited with what we were able to pull off in this instance. So.
Any funny or unexpected behind the scenes moment that you could share?
There's a bunch. We had these tiki torches. Whenever you're filming on location in a jungle, and you lighting and you have to, like, the reality versus what the cinema needs are two different things. So you need to create lighting sources to be able to light a set, as well as have it interact with the movie lights so it's all believable and real. So we had, which naturally, if you were stranded, you'd probably cut up some torches and figure out how to make fire, and then you'd light the torches, right? Well, that happens. There's some scenes where there was some torches behind Lacey, and the torches just went nuclear and started just melting and catching a whole thing on fire. And she's staying committed, and the fire behind her is growing and growing, and the light, and she could feel it, and she's staying in character, staying until we yelled cut and got her out of there. But she was so committed until we yelled cut and like got her out of there. She was staying in it, and it was the dailies on that were pretty funny. There's a lot of great outtakes with our little T-Rex dog. He was fantastic. There was there was a particular there's an adventure sequence involving some some jet skis and Ian, and on the first take there was a shelf in the ocean that dropped right off, and he didn't realize, so he went to step and just boom, went right under the water. That's pretty. He stayed in character and pulled himself up, but needless to say, we had to reset. There's a lot of things like that, a lot of moments, and a lot of crew bonding and cast bonding moments that were not during the filming days. Our off time, we there was an old jungle golf course that was kind of swallowed up by the jungle, but it was still playable, and we'd go out there and play in the jungle. We must have lost 300 balls by the time we were done, but the whole crew and cast and everything, we would all kind of come together and bond and do that. We had a lot of wonderful adventures up some of the rivers that go through the jungle, some of the beautiful waterfalls there, which we filmed at. Um, so it was a pretty magical time, and the people that oversaw the resort and managed the resort had become dear friends, and they took great care of us. It was a really fun, magical experience. The people over there, I can't stress enough, are so kind. It's a great place to visit if you can stomach the long plane ride, because once you get there, it's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you hope? I know we've talked rom-com. We're going to expect comedy. We're going to expect the romance, our classics from Hallmark. But what do you hope audiences take away from Lost in Paradise?
Just how much fun the movie is. Like the movie's got a lot of heart. It's got a surprising amount of heart for being a rom com, which I love, and that's what we come to expect, or we should come to expect with these Hallmark films. But just how much fun the movie is, and how much I think they're gonna fall in love with the characters, because they're all of them. I say that the top four especially, they're they did such a good job building characters that were interesting and quirky, but it's hard not to fall in love with them and their character arcs. So it was a pleasure.
Okay, so we didn't get to talk with the last two projects that you did. We didn't get to kind of do some of the, getting back into you doing what you do, why you do it. I'm curious, is there something on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Oh, there's tons of things on my bucket list that I haven't done yet. Do you mean in the Hallmark cinematic universe or just
You
my?
just in general.
Oh yeah, I've got several. I've got a movie called The John Marsh Chronicles, which is very much a modern day Indiana Jones esque, a little darker than that thing. I've got a thing called Unlock the Dead, which is very Stephen King esque, Pet Cemetery esque type of thing. Those are passion projects of mine. We'll see if they ever get going.
So there's some
But
legs to them. They're not just up here. They're just
no, as a matter of fact, I've had chances to sell the actual scripts
okay.
several times, and they're ones I've held off. Fortunate enough to be working consistently, so I haven't had to go that route. But because it's like there's certain things you do, and you're like, I want to do this. If I never sell it, if I never get to do it, I don't want to sell the concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've had the chance actually to sell both of them several times, and I just haven't.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I'm involved with it in some way or other. They're just kind of they're very close to me, and there's other projects like that. But in terms of Hallmark, we are doing every year we've done projects. Like a lot of the projects we've been fortunate enough to do, we've either been involved with early on or developed and brought in, and so they are all kind of passion projects of ours. Everything that we put our name on and our stamp on, we're super proud of, and we have more that we're in the process of doing that are coming out this year that are in that vein, which we're super excited about. So.
So you've got one coming up very soon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So, not, pretty soon here, we pack up and we head back to Asheville, North Carolina, to do another Biltmore film, and they just announced the title. It's called The Grand Biltmore Christmas, and we're really excited about that. The original was something that our company was involved with, and that we helped make, and we're very proud of it. It's kind of become a Christmas classic, especially with Hallmark fans. But even with they actually put it out on Netflix as well, and it had an incredible following. So it's become very beloved. I dare say a Christmas classic in some ways. This new story is exactly that. It's a new story told, with the Biltmore. So it's a new set of characters. It doesn't rely on really any of the old characters, although Jonathan Frakes is back and plays crucial role to the telling of this story. But that being said, it's very much its own standalone within the same universe, if that makes sense. And we're super excited about that because fans are going to be able. And this isn't nothing. This is what I'm about to say is something you can see online with the press release anyway. But you're going to see locations and places at Biltmore that have never been shown before, and it's an entirely new story, an entirely fresh look at some certain things, and especially with the mystique of the Vanderbilt family and how Biltmore came to be and some of their traditions that we're really excited to show and tell. So what I think the biggest takeaway I want people to understand is we're not trying to rehash. We're not trying to rewrite the wheel. That first movie, in our opinion, is gold and very beloved. We love it ourselves. We're super proud of it. And we're trying to give the audience something new, but something cherished and beloved, if that makes sense. So they can enjoy both. They don't have to conflict with each other. And a lot of the fans have been super excited about it, but there has been some worry. Did we swap out the characters and put new actors in the old character roles? No. those characters still exist in that universe, and that's where they need to be. And this is a whole new set of characters and a whole new journey. And I hope people are excited about that because it's a fantastic story, fantastic script. Marcy Holland's back. She wrote the script. She's a genius writer. I love her work. She did the Christmas Quest for us last year, and she's just fantastic. I can't say enough about her writing chops. And the cast we're assembling is fantastic. I cannot. We're about to announce some new additions to our cast next week that we're really excited about. So we look forward to people enjoying this journey. So my biggest takeaway would be sit back and just enjoy this new project for what it is, because I think fans are going to love it.
So, I mean, other than location and Jonathan Frakes, it is a new project. And then, of course, you guys doing both of them.
Yes, yes, it's a new story set within the framework. Yes, but in the same cinematic universe. I mean, Jonathan is back as his character and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's Jonathan playing the same type of character and stuff like that. But that's all I will say. They'll have to wait and see what comes out. So,
So
but
exciting.
speaking of scope, another thing that we're really focusing hard on is the scope of this movie, just like the last one. We want it, we want this to be a very cinematic looking and feeling movie, and we're working really, really hard at pulling that off with a lot of different, and again, these are things you can read, but a lot of different time frames in the movie too, which is
Mhm.
fun. Eras
Yeah.
and periods. So
Was it this project where they were trying to get a Saint Bernard?
yes.
Another dog. Here we go.
Another dog. Yeah, just for a quick little cameo, which I don't want to say too much about, but there's reasons if for those that are members or those that are steeped in Vanderbilt/Biltmore history, they'll see the Saint Bernard and know why we're trying to do that. So
I love that there's going to be that connection to, that real history
oh,
of
big time, big time. There's a lot of connection. Like in the first movie, the Biltmore estate was really a movie location in the 40s. Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
And then people visit it as the living museum, which it is in the present. One of the things I'm very excited about with this movie is we actually get to go and experience Biltmore as a lived-in place, and that's all I'll say too. So
Yes. Love it. Love it. Well, Dustin, it has been fantastic to catch up with you again. Love seeing those two projects that we talked about last year. Excited to see Lost in Paradise. I just want to remind everybody that Lost in Paradise with Lacey and Ian is going to premiere on Saturday night on the Hallmark Channel. If you can't watch it on Saturday night, you can catch it on Sunday on Hallmark Plus. Dustin, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to see this movie. Really excited to see what's to come with the new Biltmore project and the other things that are going to show up later on this year. So happy 2026 to you again as well.
thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. Look forward to coming on again sometime. You take care.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dustin. Bye bye.
Bye bye.